All right, so let me see if I can adjust this color so I don't look blue. I hope I look okay. I'm here in my favorite place in the world, and all of you who know me know where that is. That is out in the country at my cabin, and so good to get out of the city. And this afternoon I'm going to go over to my farm, and I've pretty much decided I'm going to put some tiny cabins up there, and I'll do some video and post that on my personal page later. I don't have Wi-Fi up there, so I can't do it live. So first of all, let's talk about DCS and just the dealings I've had and the ultimate frustrations. And the one I'm going to share with you first of all is sneakiness. Okay, so I have a medical kidnap case, and I've done medical kidnap cases before. For those of you who've been around a while, you know that Terry LaPointe had a whole website where she wrote about medicalkidnap.com. She wrote stories. She wrote some stories in Tennessee. She wrote one of my stories. And so I'm dealing with another fractured rib case. And whenever you deal with a medical kidnap case, you deal with large children's hospitals. So in Tennessee, it's Vanderbilt. All right, in Vanderbilt, I know Vanderbilt University, Vanderbilt Children's Hospital gets $4 million a year directly from the Department of Children's Services. Good morning, Adolfo. Good morning, Krista. So that is a conflict of interest. How can it not be a conflict of interest? Once they get the kids in foster care, they put them through TEIS, they put them through the Bill Wilkerson Hearing Center, they send them to all their specialists. So how can you not say that there's not a conflict of interest? You have DCS, these child abuse pediatricians coming in and quote unquote examining the child and then holding themselves out as the state's expert when really they're an investigator. And then they're also getting money from the agency. So in this particular case, I got into the case late, and I'm just going to say it's very, very difficult for me when I get into a case late because I see things that weren't done the way I would do them at the beginning of the case, and it makes it harder to untangle those things. So in this particular case, Dr. Verena Brown was the expert. Oh my gosh, it's now been like 4 years ago, okay? That's how incredibly gruesome the time periods are on this and not getting good information. And I just want to say, and I want to be very clear about this, when I got out of law school, the very first thing I did was become a county prosecutor in Metro Davidson County. We were a law enforcement agency. We had investigators. We had a CID, a criminal investigation division of the police department. They took photographs, they took pictures, we had to disclose everything. They did a criminal investigation, and DCS does not do that. And DCS then uses the medical experts that they pay millions of dollars to testify against parents. And then you've got the problem that you've got Vanderbilt University, which is the largest medical center in Middle Tennessee, and all the doctors in Middle Tennessee have practice privileges at Vanderbilt. So they're not going to talk against Vanderbilt. So trying to find somebody in the same community that will testify against a doctor at Vanderbilt, it's not going to happen. Okay, that's the way the world works. And so this particular doctor, as we were getting ready for the hearing, I wanted to, 2 years ago, I wanted to cross-examine her. And DCS was like, oh, we don't know where she is. She's moved. We can't find her. We're not required to produce her. We've already got her deposition. I'm like, okay, so I went to court. First of all, I started trying to set this last October. I went to court in August, and I said, I want the court to order the department a deadline as to whether or not they're going to produce this witness or they're going to rely on her deposition. So the court gave him a deadline, September the 4th. September 4th came and went, and they did not notify me at all. Nothing, nada. And so according to the scheduling order, I had until September 30th to produce for them my medical expert summary. I did, okay? I did. I did graphs, charts, references, medical summary of the disputing what the other doctor had said. And then the scheduling order said that within 30 days of me providing that they would be required to either tell me whether they wanted to depose that doctor or they would tell me whether or not they were going to have a rebuttal. 30 days came and went, and guess what? Silence, dead silence, wouldn't tell me anything. So the court order was that we were to return on November the 6th and get our final hearing date if everything had been met in the scheduling order. The day before the hearing, DCS attorney sends me an email and go, oh, we've located Dr. Verena Brown and she'll be our expert at the hearing. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously kidding me? Now, these are the same DCS attorney that has complained that we shouldn't even have a court date in the first place, that we should not be allowed to have a court date on this case. And so I was mad because you know what? I'd found her 2 years ago with a Google search. Okay, all I had to do is type her name into Google. She was at a medical facility in Georgia. You could then check the state licensing and find out that she had a license in Georgia. I was so mad. I was so mad because you know what? I would not have been granted that relief. I would not have been granted that privilege. The parents aren't granted that relief. And again, the Department of Children's Services should be seeking the truth, okay? Not just their agenda. They should be seeking the truth. They were created in 1994 in Tennessee and in most other states about the same time because of the federal legislation. They were created as a service agency, not as a law enforcement agency. Okay, do you understand that? Very, very, very important. So anyway, the judge told them, and I was like, I want to cross-examine her. And then the judge is like, okay, well, you need to produce her for a cross-examination deposition. And then we get out in the hallway and the state attorney is like, well, I'm busy. I have trials this day. I have a motion day that day. Because I made the judge order that we had to come back on November 20th. And if it was not resolved, the judge needed to resolve it. And so then the attorney's like, well, another attorney's like, well, we can do it in the evening. I'm like, oh my God, geez, really? So that's the kind of position they put us in, and they just want to delay. And they accuse us of delaying, and then they pull tricks like this. All right, this is not the only time I've had these kinds of tricks pulled. All right, so let me also catch you up on Baby Lucy, because a lot of you have seen the Baby Lucy video from October the 6th, when DCS removed her from her home and put her in that horrible car seat. She was 4 weeks old. They put her in a toddler car seat. She's crying. Oh my gosh, it was such a disaster. Like 200,000 people have seen that now. So Baby Lucy was put in a stranger's home, right? Put in a stranger's home. 2 days later, they finally just agreed to move Lucy to her maternal grandmother's home, but would not let mom nurse, would not let mom spend the night, right? So maternal grandmother, who bless her heart, she's about my age, you know, and God bless her that she was there. But, you know, I've had my grandchildren in my home at 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 weeks old, and they wake up a lot, and you mamas know that. They wake up at 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and you know, as poor old sleep-deprived people just really can't function like that. Mamas are prepared for that. So but she did it, God bless her. And you know, they could have very easily just tested mom. Actually, they had already tested mom for drugs, and it was not a problem. But they could have tested mom right there and then found that there was no problem. They were accusing her of drug abuse. They could have found out that there was no problems with using her milk. So fine. And then we had a CFTM meeting, and which is a child and family team meeting. Some places they call it a CHINS meeting, Child in Need of Services meeting. And they, the father wanted to record the meeting, and DCS said no, and you know, shut the meeting down. And so that was, I don't know, about a week and a half ago. And then they rescheduled the meeting, and we let them know we're recording. And now all of a sudden they've dropped that. And so during this last meeting that we had this week, mother begged them on the, you can hear it on the audio, beg them, can I please nurse my baby? Can I please nurse my baby? We ask the barriers to reunification. We don't get any answers. It is not a team meeting. I told them they need to take the frickin' word team out of it and just say this is what they're going to do, and just put in there that we're opposed to all of it, okay? So, because everybody just lets them do whatever they want, just walks all over them. So that is the update on that. I'm going to give you a couple other updates since I haven't been on live for a while. I've been pretty busy, but I have made progress with a non-offending father. And I've had a couple cases with the parent who is the father who's the non-offender, where there are allegations of substance abuse with the mother. And that is still unfolding. One of the cases is at briefing, and another case is at reunification stage. So I'm not really going to talk a lot about them on here. I just don't want to jinx anything on that, I guess you would say. So I'm not going to talk about that too much. And then I do have a Court of Appeals oral argument coming up this week in Tennessee. Right now, we are doing live Zoom Court of Appeals arguments. This is on the unconstitutional investigative orders that they have in Tennessee, which basically says that DCS can go to court and get a court order to compel a parent to cooperate with investigation, which means producing their child. And in this particular case, a non-offending parent told DCS no, they wanted to get their own mental health treatment for their child before DCS commenced an investigation. DCS went out and got an ex parte order, blocked all the parents' ability, non-offending parent now, blocked the parent's ability to get mental health services for the child for 4 months, ultimately, for 4 months. And this was a young child, a 5-year-old child, right? So they blocked the non-offending parent's ability to get mental health treatment and got a court order, an ex parte court order, that they could go pick up the child if they needed to. So I fought that, and that issue is now, yeah, thank you, Julie, for chiming in. Exactly. Zoom appellate argument. Okay, so Julie, that is on Thursday. I'll post the exact time, or I'll send you the link to it. It is, and I'll post the link to that Zoom. I actually had one argument on Zoom, and a lot of people were commenting on it, and so they turned off all the commenting on it. So, but it is on Thursday the 12th. Hope that's the 12th, and it's at 2:30 in Central Standard Time. So I will post the link to that, and y'all just need to watch it, right? And it will be against the state of Tennessee, against the Attorney General's office. They're going to try to say it's moot but you know, this statute will never be challenged if they don't allow us to challenge it. And that's the way these horrible laws. I saw this horrible law about 10 years ago, and I could not believe that they had this law on the books. And this is what's happening. They're putting all these horrible law on the books. Yeah, Julie, we really do. I know we kind of were touching base together for a while, and then I think we both got caught in our own swamps, got our swamp boots out and started kicking the mud around, and then we sort of lost touch with each other. So yeah, we certainly need to get together. There's just a handful of legal warriors on this battlefront, and thank you very much. So, okay, so that kind of catches up some things. I do want to tell you, make sure everybody's aware. I posted this, and my criminal court case where they arrested me back in July of 2019 is now on the docket. So for those of you who are, again, trying to catching up on stuff, my client, Wendy, was arrested for custodial interference on an ex parte illegal order, and now they are blaming me and saying that I facilitated a felony. Okay, so they did a secret indictment. They didn't do warrants. They did secret indictments. And then when the indictment went to the judge for bonding, like the judge in my case, like put 0 bond on it, like put ROR. So because I think, I'm not naming any names, but I think they probably knew it was full of bull. So, and they know I'm a warrior. I mean, people in my community know I'm a warrior for families and for constitutional rights. So, we finally are setting the trial on it. Now, this is going to be, and God bless my client, she's so nervous. So y'all need to say some prayers for her. And yeah, those in the front lines are the bloodiest. Exactly. Sanctions. You're exactly right, Julie. So am I. I haven't even talked about the sanctions yet, but I'm just talking, they want to put me in jail. Okay. So, I'm like, okay, so, and I was like talking to my attorney. I'm like, okay, by the time this gets over, I'll be like 70 years old. I've never had a criminal charge in my life. You're going to put me in jail for being a valiant attorney, right? And, I did get an opportunity to meet Roger Stone personally at the medical freedom event that we had in Nashville. And I told him, I'm like, Roger, I'm not near, I didn't have, FBI agents surrounding my house, but I get it. I've been retaliated and arrested for trying to do good work. So So this will be, we're gonna videotape it. We may ask to do it live stream. I don't know, but my client will have to be tried first, and then I'll be tried, and I'm gonna be her main witness, and I'm gonna tell, what happened and how this was an illegal order and how it was ex parte. Oh, well, Julie, they want to lock me. They want to convict me, sweetheart. It was ROR. There was no bond on it, but they want to convict me. So. And this is just I've fought against that system, and I'm just going to say this is a little bit of a diversion, but I'm going to say this. So this particular DA's office, I was so angry at because let me tell you, they totally screwed up a child rape case. They totally screwed up a child rape case. I was representing the child. They totally messed it up. They screwed up our whole civil rights action. I mean, we had freaking DNA evidence, and I said only Marcia Clark and the Williamson County District Attorney's Office in Tennessee could screw up a case with DNA. But so they don't like me because I was very verbal about that. So they've gotten together and they decided they're going to pursue this. So, but there's a really interesting thing about the statute that they've charged my client on, and this I've just told the two attorneys, the public defenders representing her. I have an attorney who I've known for 25 years and who I've helped in some situations, and I'm like, this is the case to challenge this statute. Custodial interference was written to be among families and parents and domestic orders. It was not written for ex parte agency orders, just like, I mean, the whole abuse of that, and then the whole abuse of the Amber Alert system as well. So, but anyway, that will tell my story. And y'all know that whenever I get an audience, I love to tell the story. I am a great storyteller. That is one reason why litigation is good for me, because I can get a story out. Now I have to depend on my clients in other cases to get the facts in order, and now this time I know the facts and I get to tell the facts. So so it will definitely be video recorded, if not on live stream. So yeah, Julie, thank you. All right, so that's kind of a catch up on that. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are worldly, and I'm going to do it for a very, not worldly, nationally in America for a specific purpose. And I want to talk about it from the aspect of just where, with the election, because of all the crazy thinking that's going on about who's in charge and who's doing what and who's challenging this, and who's at fault and who won't secede and who's calling it wrong, and all the news channels. So I want to just really break this down to basics and just kind of talk about it from there. And then you go, oh my gosh, arrested sitting in D.C. Well, yeah, Bonnie, I get it. Well, Bonnie, I'm sorry. This is a diversion, and this is what happens when live, because you see a comment and you want to make a comment to it. When Wendy and I were in a CFTM meeting and I was recording it, and they brought law enforcement in to stand behind us. So, so they wanted to arrest us right then and there, but I started recording them, and they were the ones who were being ugly. But anyway, so let's talk about just election as it relates to us, our relationship with our government. Our elections, our voting is it's a constitutional right. It's a protected right. Honestly, I'm just going to tell you, it is truly, next to family rights, because that's my number one thing, but it is also probably parallel and right up there with our liberty rights, okay? Honestly, you guys, listen to me. Our right to vote and select our leaders. We are so dependent on our leaders. This is not just a popularity contest. We are so dependent on our leaders. And I'm going to talk about legislatures and judiciary and executive branch. We are so dependent on them. And so our right to vote and have a quality election is so important. And you know that I am very politically active, and I have been for 15 years. I know our voter rolls are in horrible shape. Okay, they're in horrible shape. If you want to register to vote, like and some states, they have what's called the motor voter state, where if you have a driver's license, they immediately put you on the registration polls, which I don't know if they're doing that for state IDs or not, but they could be, which means that they would be putting illegal people who are not citizens on the voter rolls, because you have a right to get a state ID even if you can't get a driver's license, or if your license is revoked, or if you're a felon or whatever. So otherwise, there's just a form for a voter registration that you just fill out, and you put your address and you mail it in. Okay, there's no verification when you fill out that form and send it in to your election commission. There's no verification that you are who you are. Now, when you think about it, I find this like so absolutely critical. You know, I have LexisNexis, and LexisNexis, I can plug anybody's name in. I can plug, you know, I see your name scrolling up here. I know what state you're in, most of you, so I could plug your name in to my LexisNexis public records search. I could find out your last 12 addresses. I could find out any civil lawsuits. I don't care if you didn't pay a credit card in 2004. It'll show up on this report that I can get on you. I can get that, okay? That, and it is a compilation of data. I can get it'll give me every vehicle you've owned for the past 10 years. It'll tell me your neighbors. It'll tell me if anybody else has tried to use your social security number. It gives me your email addresses. It gives me your social media ID, okay? All in one report about you, okay? About you. I can tell, I know where you are, I know where you work, I know what kind of car you drive, I know who your neighbors are, I know if you've ever had a civil judgment, I know if you've had a criminal judgment, I know what your email addresses are and your date of birth, okay? So the fact that we can't instantaneously do verifications is crazy. It's crazy, okay? It is absolutely crazy. So, there's no laws that protect the voter polls. If you get married, or you die, or you move, or you change your name, there's no law that says you have to change your voter polls. It just isn't there. And it is one of the most lax, most inaccurate data sources that we have in the United States. It's horrible. It's horrible. And so if you take those, and also I ran for office way back in 2008, and I collected all of the registered voters' data from my area, I was looking at a state house seat, and so I collected everybody. I had Excel spreadsheets on everybody, right? And it would show when they last voted. And some of the people hadn't voted in 20 years. So do you think that maybe they won't be accurate? I'm just telling you, that is so critical. There is no accurate database on the voter polls. So if somebody takes those voter polls and mails them out to everybody on the voter registration, it's going to be inaccurate. It's going to be inaccurate. And so then what do? So then people start filling them out. And I'm going to tell you, I went to, and a few Family Forward people went with me to the Unrigged Summit that they had in Nashville. Well, when was that, guys? 5 years ago? I know Patty went. I think Terry went with me. And, oh my gosh, I'm brain dead. But anyway, it ended up being probably a pretty liberal summit, but we did talk about, we talked about protests, and we talked about preparing for protests, and we talked about there were a lot of different subjects. So anyway, I got on a call list, I'm sure. So about 8 months ago, I had somebody call me, and they were asking me to support mail-in ballots, and I asked them this question. I'm like, I want you to tell me, please explain to me how we make that secure. How do we protect the integrity of that process? I says, my adult children over the last 3 years have all lived with me during some point. And if you even if you get utility bills to a certain address, it'll show up on my LexisNexis research, by the way. If you've changed where you're paying your utility bill, or where you pay property taxes, or where you're, I don't know if it gets down to lease agreements or not. So I asked them, I'm like, look, I've had my 3 adult children and live in my household in the past 3 years. I said, what if I just take their ballots? And what if I just sign them? And what if I just send them in? Because you know what? They're not going to give enough thought as to who to vote for anyway. And I'm very active, Connie Reguli for president 2024. Oh, Veronica. Oh my gosh, I would be like second oldest then if we're going to, I'm not even going there. But so anyway, I asked them this question. I was like, so what do we do? What do we do to protect the integrity of that? And the answer to them was, well, listen, this is important. Here was his answer. His answer was, that would be a crime. They said that. The mail-in ballot people said to me, when they called me and talked to me about supporting mail-in ballots, they confirmed to me that to abuse the mail-in ballot process would be criminal. They have confirmed that. They have said that to me. I wish I would have recorded that phone call. I record a lot of things, but this was a random phone call. So unfortunately, I did not record it. And then ultimately he says, well, I can see we don't agree, and he hung up on me, all right? But they admitted that an abuse of that process would be criminal. So we have to find out the truth. We have to get the truth. I mean, we have to have the truth. We have to know if these ballots, if there were, one girl I saw on a YouTube video said she had received 7 ballots in her name. One of them had her married name, one had another name. And then she went to vote in person, and they said she had already voted. So there are people who are dead who could receive mail-in ballots. I know somebody said their dog received a mail-in ballot. We have to know the truth. The mail-in ballot process was not it wasn't protected when it was created, okay? Was not protected when it was created. So let me talk about that. The Constitution says, the federal Constitution provides, and federal law provides, that the state legislatures will create the election process, that they have that duty. Remember, we are a republic, not a democracy. We have to depend upon our state governments to do certain things. And one of them is creating a secure election process. So it's up to your legislators to create that election process. It is not up to your court system. It's not up to your court. It's not up to your courts, okay? If you wanted, in some people, I know people who are like, oh, we want to mail in our ballots. I think I actually had 2 or 3 phone calls about mail-in ballots. One guy's like, oh, I always do absentee. I'm like, that's fine. Absentee is a protected process where there's verification is required. There's date requirements. There are things that need to get in time. You have ways to check and make sure your ballot was received. I says, but the general mail-in, blanket mail-in ballots is not a protected process. There are other issues. Honestly, we spent 3.5 years being worried about Russian interference with the last election. Do you not think that foreign governments could print those ballots? They can get our election rolls. Listen to me. Listen. Our voter rolls are public. Okay, do you understand that? Do you understand that? I know. Because when I wanted to run for office, I didn't have to get a court order. I didn't have to get a subpoena. All I had to do was contact the election commission in my county, and I got a complete list, an Excel spreadsheet of everybody registered to vote in that district where I was thinking about running, okay? Anybody can get it. Anybody can get it. If I can get it and I'm a nobody, they can get it. A Russian can get it. A Chinese person can get it. A African person can get it, okay? Our voter registration information is public record. Public record. Understand that, because that means this can be accessible by anybody in the world, and they could print out ballots, they could mail them out randomly. they could, and then they had collection boxes. And I posted earlier today on my page about how does it get messed up, because you can have massive printing, you can have harvesting, which means that people are allowed to go and collect the ballots of other people. And I'm telling you, a lot of that happened, and it happened in different ways. It happened in nursing homes, it happened in communities that are that are disadvantaged. I know in one particular case I saw a post that a union had promised a payment, a $50, $100 bonus if they could have their ballot to mail in. Okay, so ballot harvesting is a huge problem, a huge problem. Your vote is your vote. If you don't care enough about the election, or you're too confused, and granted, a lot of people are confused. If you're too confused, or you don't care enough to pick a candidate that you feel like can represent what you want our country to look like, then don't vote. Don't vote. And don't turn your vote over to somebody else. I mean, I do what I can to educate people, and I have educated a lot of people throughout Tennessee, and that is going to continue to be my mission. But if you aren't smart enough, or don't care enough, or don't want to get into it, or just don't understand it, or don't want to listen to your parents, or hate your neighbor, or just even if you just hate Donald Trump because you think he's an asshole, okay, that's not a reason to vote. You are voting for the person who's going to lead your country, okay? In America, we have 4-year, exactly, Veronica, you're exactly right. We have 4-year terms for our presidents, and they can only run twice, okay? Okay, so that is so important that I wanted you to know. That's my position on the truth. Okay? It's also my position that our legislative branch, that's the constitutional position, that our legislative branch has to create that election process. So, with that in mind, the United States Supreme Court, there was a lawsuit filed in Pennsylvania, and I want you, yeah, thank you, Ann. There is a lawsuit filed in the state of Pennsylvania. There were some lawsuits filed prior to the election, and basically the courts said we're not going to rule on something before it happens. And I'm just going to tell you that's the way it works, okay? You can't even get what's called a declaratory judgment to prevent something from happening, okay? I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but the courts say they're not going to rule on something that hasn't happened. So they could not go get a preemptive order on certain issues because they didn't have sufficient evidence, because maybe they could have handled it a different way. Maybe if they had clusters of mail-in ballots that they could have shown were already corrupt, but they couldn't do that. So after this process began and we started finding out the ballots were being delivered all night long on November 3rd and 4th, then some lawsuits have been filed. And in particular, in Pennsylvania, a lawsuit was filed saying that the law holds that the law of that state holds that the ballots have to be cast by 8 o'clock on Election Day, November the 3rd. So that means, honestly, this is the truth, if there are 6 tubs of ballots at the post office or at a collection box or in somebody's truck where they're harvesting ballots, and they do not get them, they do not cast them, do not get them there by 8 o'clock on November 3rd, they're illegal ballots, okay? That is the law, and I'm sorry for those of you who believe every vote should be counted. That's why people are saying every legal vote should be counted. This is not a banana republic. This is not Turkey, okay? This is not Colombia. This is not Venezuela. This is the United States. I want good laws, and I want our laws followed, okay? We have a lot of bad laws, and we have a lot of good laws that are not followed. So I want good laws, and I want them followed. So that's the law. All right, so keep TikTok watching on that, okay? Keep watching. Again, I've got some visual aids over here, and we're going to go through those in just a minute. All right, so that is my election story to you. So whatever chatter you hear, blah, 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 and Biden's already said this, and Trump won't concede, and blah, 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 blah. I'm also going to remind you all, I put a post up about this. Al Gore did not concede until December the 13th in 2000. Okay, so just shut up about, nobody's going to concede. Trump won't concede. Okay, when it's over, all right? But this issue as to what a legal ballot is and what ballot should be counted and how it's counted needs to be resolved in our republic, in our United States of America. This needs to be resolved, all right? Get it? Okay, very important, very important. Needs to be resolved, okay? We have some other issues that need to, just like some of the battles that I fight, I fight just because an issue needs to be resolved, okay? Everybody's like, oh, I want to go to federal court. My civil rights have been violated. I'm going to tell you this right now. 1 out of 10 civil rights cases ever gets before a jury, and of those, probably less than half of them prevail, okay? But what a civil rights lawsuit does is carve out our rights, okay? Carve out our rights. Perfect example. I filed a civil rights lawsuit in 2014 for a juvenile who was thrown in solitary confinement, who had mental health issues, and it was because he, quote unquote, made a threat to some other kids who were out of the facility the next day. They held him in solitary confinement for 51 days, would not even let his parents talk to him, okay, would not even let him parents talk to him. He was, finally, when I finally got the records, and when his parents did call, they said, oh, he's doing fine. When I finally got the records, I found out he was beating the walls, he was standing on his head, he was clanging the doors, he was yelling and screaming. Okay, they had all kinds of evidence that there was a severe mental health deterioration. You know what? The case got dismissed because there was no law in place that protected juveniles from solitary confinement. So now the Sixth Circuit has said that you can't put a juvenile in solitary confinement for punitive purposes. I'm saying that was already the law, okay? That was already the law, but that's what they say. So a lot of lawsuits that happen are really to carve out our rights, okay? I'm going to give you an example. One of the most famous cases, Supreme Court cases, is the Dombrowski case, and you know what it was about? It was about voter suppression, and you know who was creating the voter suppression? The Democrats, okay? The Democrats. All right, so we will work through this, and we're going to carve out what our rights are and what kind of voting rights we have in this republic. All right, stand firm on that. Just stand freaking firm, all right? And I don't care where you are, you better believe that this is important, because you may think, if you think that Republicans are being sore losers right now, you just wait to the next freaking election. We have 323 million people in this country. There'll be 500 million votes, okay? Just telling you, all right? It will not end. It will be... It'll be endless. Just like the Supreme Court, we've had 9 Supreme Court justices for how many years? 200 years, right? And now they're saying, well, if the Democrats can get on board, they'll add another 9 justices, okay? Our liberty rights are at stake here. They just are. All right, give me a second. All right, so... Okay, so I have a couple other things I want to do with you this morning. This will be the end, I promise. I did make some visual aids this morning. I'm going to start with... oh, excuse me. All right, so I'm just going to start with... This is just going to be, number one, this is just going to be our little 8th grade civics class. So as you think through the things that are going on for the next 3 or 4 days, and as I educate you on understanding how to be an advocate, okay, this is important that you understand. The advocacy program is we're just kind of stepping through. I work full time. I can only put so much time onto it. But as advocates, there are certain things that you need to learn and you need to be able to articulate. So let's just talk about this. See this? Oh, is this backwards? Is this backwards? Can somebody tell me? Looks like it's backwards. You'd get Dem support because you're a female. Thank you, Veronica. All right. Give me just a second. I've talked too much. My throat is dry already. Is it backwards? Yes. Hold on. I know there's a way on here to flip it, and I don't see it. Bring somebody on, invite. No. Darn it. Okay, so you know what? I am can still read it though. Okay, so all you people who can read backwards, there's a way on Facebook to flip this, and I don't know what it is. I could do this. Hang on, I'll do this real quick. Aha! There we go. Right, my arms aren't long enough. Okay, there you go. Now you can see it, right? See what better my teachers put together for her. Thank you. Okay, all right, well, you can see it now. So I'm going to go back. Now I'm going to talk to you about it. I have to stick my arm out here really far. All right, so remember, our government, we are a republic, okay? It means we have a federal and we have a state government. Each of those governments have three branches, the judicial, the executive, and the legislative branch. Both of those governments, the federal and the state, judicial, executive, and legislative branch. And then there's a federal and a state constitution. So important to remember. Everybody, every single public official who is in what is called a position of trust, that means they're making decisions about your lives. They're not just administrative. So they're making decisions about your lives, about your tax dollars, etc. They have a requirement to take an oath to the Constitution. There's a state and a federal constitution. Tennessee actually has a really great state constitution. We have lots of enumerated liberty rights, okay? Understand that. Some people say they are three equal branches of government. They are not three equal branches of government. I'm going to say it again. They are not three equal branches of government. And there is a great audio, if you can find it. Maybe I can find it on YouTube or something and share it with you. It's called I think it's called 9 Judicial Myths, but it's by David Barton, and David Barton talks about this myth that there are three equal branches of government. The judicial branch should be the least powerful branch. It's up too high, she says. It's up too high. Okay. Y'all can't see that? Can y'all see that? Can somebody see that? Can somebody put, yes. I've got somebody saying it's up too high. I can't bring it any lower. All right, so, okay. How about that? There we go. Hopefully you can see that. All right, so the judicial branch is the least important branch of government. Okay, just keep remembering that. We're going to talk about why that is. All right, you ready? I'm going to tell you a little bit more. Aha, there we go. Judicial. The judicial branch, and sorry you can see through that. I'll do this. There we go. The judicial branch is to interpret the law and adjudicate facts, okay? Interpret the law and adjudicate facts. It is their obligation to protect our liberty, to protect the Constitution, and to adjudicate the facts, okay? If I say the sky is blue and you go to court and you say the sky is brown, the court has to make that determination. The court has to determine which fact is correct, okay? That's what they do. That is why I tell people all the time, and I'm going to throw this in there. This was a last-minute visual aid here, but you see this? I tell my clients this all the time. You own your evidence, okay? If you have a point to make when you go to court, your attorney doesn't know the evidence. You know the evidence. You know your story. You know whether you have photographs or mental health reports or drug screens or text messages. You own the evidence, and you need to get it together because your attorney, I say this to all my clients, I am just the attorney here. I do not create the facts, although some attorneys think they do. Okay, so that's the judicial branch. The legislative branch is in control of our money, and they make new laws. Okay, do you understand that? We vote on senators, we vote on representatives. We have in Tennessee a General Assembly. It's got 2 houses. All of the state bodies have 2 houses except for Nevada, not Nevada, no, North Dakota maybe. I think it's North Dakota has a unicameral system, but everybody has 2 branches. Those are the people, let me tell you, and I'm going to talk more about this, but you need to understand, these are the people you need to be on them all the time. All the time. You need them in your contacts, on speed dial. You need to be on them all the time. All right? They are in charge of taxes. They levy taxes on us. They're in charge of the budget, where our tax dollars go. They create laws, and they create agencies. Okay, this is so important for you to understand. This is why your legislators are so important. So important. I mean, you just hear about one little law at a time or one little tax at a time, but you need to think about that globally. They give other agencies the right to tax you. Okay, your driver's license is a tax. Your General Assembly or your legislature gave your driver's license branch the right to tax you. And the executive branch and the executive branch is to enforce the law. That's what the executive branch does, to protect our liberties and enforce the laws. And how does the executive branch do that? They do that with agencies, they do that with orders, and they do that with military. And that is the same at the state and the federal level. So at the federal level, you have all these federal agencies. You know, the president has a cabinet. You know, I'm always moaning and groaning about HHS, which is Health and Human Services, which is a huge agency, only second to military, that is control of all the money that's that's destroying our families. Okay, the orders are the executive orders that the governors and the president have the right to write these executive orders to enforce the laws and protect us. And we have the military and even the state. And I know you don't think about the military from a state level, but every state has a National Guard, and that's under your governor. All right, so it's so important that you understand that. And I say this again because we are talking about, I'm going to turn back around here for a minute. So, because I have been talking about this lawsuit, okay, this lawsuit on Pennsylvania voters, your legislator have the ability and the power and the authority to create the law that you want created for mail-in ballots. And there will be discussion, and it'll be in a subcommittee, and then it goes to a committee, and then it's drafted 6 times, and then they put a fiscal note on it, and then it goes up for the vote in the House, and then in the Senate, and then the governor has to sign it, okay? Those are all the steps that are in place to get a law passed. It is not we're going to mail out ballots and we're going to have the governor write an executive order that we can do because of the emergency, which I think most of these are under the emergency, the pandemic emergency, that we're going to allow mail-in ballots. So this is a huge issue, okay? I'm not going to be arguing about whether the pandemic's real or not real, and, you know, we all have our opinion about that. What is real is the effect it has on us, okay? What the effect it has on us, on our lives, and how it's changed so many things. So, all right, now, okay, so that's all I'm going to talk about the government. And I'm doing, what time is it? Can somebody tell me what time it is? So I really want to share something else with you. And this is, I thought about putting this in a separate video, but since we're all here, and I'll pass this around, I'll post that on YouTube and stuff, and I probably need to do a separate video on this anyway, but again, as to advocacy and training advocates, there are things that you need to know, and I'm going to break that down. You need to know legal things, you need to know government things, and you need to know there are certain personal things that you need to, 10:23, oh my gosh, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up because I don't like to go more than 40 minutes, and I've already am hooking on an hour here. So I'm going to go through this last section pretty fast, and then I'm going to do another separate video on it at some point. And it's a couple things as what a lot of you may not know about me is I did, I've had a series of life events. My family was in the restaurant business. We had a successful restaurant. I had a fashion and hosiery business when I was in Texas. I went to college a lot. Okay, a lot. I had 200 undergraduate hours and then had 60 graduate hours before I even started law school. So I am an overeducated person. Fortunately, I was not liberalized in that process, although I do have some very liberal attitudes when it comes to freedoms and when it comes to protecting our liberties. So, but I did a lot of master's degree level psychology work, group psychology, corporate psychology, training psychology, organizational conflict, etc. And also a lot of personality, etc. So when it comes to understanding things like what the MMPI is and why I always challenge things like mental health assessments and parenting assessments is because I do have some background in that. But I'm going to share a couple of things with you, and these are two really important things. And the first one I'm going to talk to you about is just personal development. This is how I really pondered this. I've read so many books. You guys just don't even know how many armchair psychology books and professional psychology books I've read. But this is about personal development, and this is how I view our personal development for the first 4 decades of our life. All right. Okay, now again, I'm going to flip the camera around, so because I do have a visual aid on this one, so just hang in there. Yes, I do. Thank you, Veronica. Yeah, and I'll say I'm on my heart is on Isaiah 43 today, so anybody who wants to look that up. Okay, so here we go. This is ages 0 through 10. Here is what we have to think about. The first decade of the life is about security and safety. These are internal and external. Okay, security is internal. It's how you feel about yourself. It's whether you feel secure in your world. And this is why DCS and foster care with strangers drives me absolutely crazy. And the other one is safety. And safety, that is your external. That's how you're relating to this world and how this world is treating you. So children under 10 years old who are in domestic violence homes, who are facing abuse, who are groomed sexually, those are all, that screws up their whole safety. Their relationship with the world is no longer a safe place, and that affects their internal security. So safety and security, it's so important that by the age 10, you have that internal safety and security firm. Okay, firm. All right, the second decade is on image and identity from 11 to 20. And again, internal, external. Internal is your image. It's how you see yourself. Okay, that is what you have to develop during that second decade. Identity is, again, your relationship to the world. So if you are, and you know, we see teenagers go through this whole identity development in that decade of life. And are they going to be a hippie, or are they going to be a sports figure, or are they going to be a student nerd, or are they going to be a rule breaker? Okay, so that relationship with the world begins to create that image of who they are inside. And again, it's so important that they've already got safety and security well established, because as they develop their image, they have to feel secure about who they are. Again, this is why DCS drives me freaking crazy. They just have no idea about personal development. Thank you, Veronica. Okay, so 21 to 30. Independence and interdependence. And I write this also, I wanted to share this because I have a few young followers who are like in their 20s and 30s, and plus my kids are in their 20s. And, you know, when my children reached 18, I had a sit down talk with them, and I said, you know, all 18 does is like bump you up the food chain. Okay. So, you know, don't think that makes you any better or important person. All it does is make you subject to the being devoured by the world. So independence and interdependence. And again, this is external and internal. So external, internal, your relationship is that you've got to be able to feel some independence with who you are. Again, if you're safe and you're secure and your image and your identity are well developed, you're able to now express that independence. Your interdependence is your relationship with the rest of the world. Okay, you cannot be successfully interdependent if you do not have safety and security, image and identity, and a strong sense of independence. And interdependence is going to determine what happens to you the rest of your life, whether or not you can successfully manage interdependence. Okay, you ready? All right, 21 to 30. All right, I'm going to cover one more decade. I have really covered all these and written out outlines of all these decades up to about age 70. But these first 4 decades are the most important. All right, 31 to 40 is confidence and competence. Okay? You have to feel confident. By the time you're 30, you have to be able to feel, as you are a person, you have safety and security, you have image and identity, you have independence and interdependence under control, and now you can feel confident. But now you have to feel confident in a skill that you want to use in this world because you've developed yourself personally. And you know that personally you have safety and security, image and identity, independence and interdependence, and now you can be confident, and to the world you are competent. Okay? To the world you're competent. All right, you got that? This is such an important lesson. If you are struggling and you're still in your 20s, go back. And I say this, and I have said many times before, I am not a substance abuse person. I don't understand substance abuse. I don't understand that it's a medical condition. I don't understand how you rehabilitate from it. But I do understand, and I have seen, and I've worked with hundreds of people who have substance abuse issues, that they have internal conflicts. They have internal conflicts. So if you are struggling with anything, whether you're struggling with what are you going to do with your career, with, relationships with children involved, with drug addiction, with understanding just how to understand this world and fit into this world, go back and check yourself. Go back and check yourself and make sure that you satisfied safety and security in the first 10 years of your life. And if you didn't, it's not all over. You can go back and you can say, okay, I want to feel safe in this world and I want to feel secure. A lot of people who are victims of domestic violence and have been in domestic violence relationships, they get damaged at this area. They have a damaged safety and security threshold, okay? They're damaged. And so it's very hard for them to deal with their image and their identity because it's cluttered and it's confused and it's unsure, okay? So go back and say, what do I have to do to be safe and secure in this world? And start breaking it down. You've got to break down your own lives, all right? And then, if you're having trouble with just independence or interdependence, and let me tell you, interdependence is understanding that once you're independent in this world, all that really means is that you still have all these other peoples and players and taxes and obligations that you have to meet. And so therefore, you have to be interdependent. You have to. All right? And if you're in your 30s and 40s and you still don't feel like you're competent and you still don't feel like you have confidence, go back and look at these other areas, okay? All right, do you understand that? You might want to, like I said, I'll do another video just on this so that it's shorter and you can go through your life and you can say, where am I in this process? All right, and then we will go. Okay, so that is, all right, now, like I said, I'm approaching an hour. It's a beautiful day here, by the way. Beautiful day. As I already told you at the beginning of this, I'm going up to my farm. I'm going to do a little video and going to show it to you and show you where I'm going to put some tiny homes. I've already talked to a tiny home builder. Beautiful day. This is my favorite place in the world. So, all right, one last thing I'm going to talk to you about, and that is interdependence. It's interdependence. I'm going to focus on that for a minute. Again, those who want to be advocates, those who want to be family and parent advocates, and one of the parents involved in a case this past couple weeks, I actually told her she'd probably make a really good parent advocate, but there are certain tools and words and language you've got to learn to understand. So I'm going to talk about this interdependence. Okay, so you ready? The last thing here. Last, I promise. Turning the camera around again here for my visual aid, so hang on. Thank you, Jessica. All right, so I'm going to talk about in this interdependence, when you are in conflict, all right, there are certain levels that you are in process, okay? The lowest level, the worst level, is when both sides have an attitude of win or walk. Either they're going to get what they want or they're going to leave the situation. Okay, we see this all the time in our Congress. Win or walk, okay? Lowest level of negotiations, lowest level. Nothing's going to happen. All right, if you can move up consciously another level and decide that win or walk is not going to be where you want to be, you have to move up. The next level is win or lose, win-lose. Okay, now you say, Connie, that's no better. Win-lose is no better. Yes, it is better because at least you're negotiating. If you're at win or lose, you're at least understanding what the other person needs. Now, I'm a lawyer. I'm in court. I'm in litigation all the time. So you know what? I go to these win-lose battles all the time. All right, somebody wins and somebody loses. Somebody's got what they want and the other person loses. Sometimes the loser gets a little bit of something, but it's a win-lose. Is it better than win or walk? Yeah, that's because you never even approached it from the first place. You just said, if it doesn't happen this way, I'm leaving, okay? We are not win or walkers, okay? Win or lose. All right, now if you can move your consciousness level up one more level and you decide, no, I don't want to be in a win-lose situation. It's not worth the risk, and I want to move one level up. Oh, you're going to love this one. Here's the next level up. It's called yield for the sake of the relationship. Okay, yield for the sake of the relationship. Now, that doesn't mean you need to be a wuss and you need to give everything away, but you need to really sit down and you need to look at your values and you need to look at your strengths and you need to say, what is it that I really need out of this? What is it that I really need here? And you look at the other person and you say, what is it that they really need? Okay, I deal with people like this all the time. They get on the phone and they're talking about this and that and whatever. And sometimes I just have to say to them, please tell me, what is it you want out of the situation that's occurring? So yielding for the sake of the relationship. Now, if you can move up in your consciousness one more level or in your negotiating skills, the next one is creative cooperation. Okay, creative cooperation means that you are, yes, thank you. So that means that you are working through the aspects of each argument and that you're trying to get a resolution for each person's concerns, okay? Now, I'm going to say the whole conversation I had to you earlier today about the election and why it's so important to have good quality election and so that your vote counts and not just the massive amount of ballots that are unverified or that didn't apply with the law. Creative cooperation. Because in the long run, we have to have it has to be valid. Okay, this is the same thing. I mean, this is where when you get into mediation and I go with the client and I say to the client and I go through the same thing. I go, look, here's the lowest situation we're in and we need to decide before we go in whether we are going to take this position, all right? And I'm going to tell you, there have been times when we've taken that position where we say, well, this needs to happen or it's a waste of time, okay? We win or walk. It just doesn't matter because ultimately we're going to go to court and we're going to be in the win-lose. But we know that we're not going to get any better negotiating position than what we have already. So we either take this or we let somebody else decide. All right, so the last one is called mutual satisfaction. This is like the pinnacle of really having a successful negotiation. This is very, very hard, very difficult, very, tenuous because people, very difficult to reach because people's own attitudes about what they want to achieve change, okay? Change. All right, so to help you remember, I'm going to do this last little summary here, and I'm going to go. Again, the bottom is win or walk. That means there's no results. You get no results. The next one up is win-lose, WL. It means there's a winner and there's a loser. The YR is yielding for the relationship. It means a give and take. Just think of it, it's give and take. And then CC, creative cooperation, means you combine your goals. And then mutual satisfaction means that you have two winners. All right, so that is your advocacy training for today. Oh my gosh! And so we've had a very We've had a very productive hour. Thank you all so much for joining me. I know several of you joined me when last Friday night on my personal page when I went to the Health Freedom Super PAC, and it was freezing cold in Nashville, and I posted several of the speakers. If you have not seen that, you might want to go to my personal page because I put them all there, and look at some of those. And I think my personal page is public, I think. I don't know. Maybe. I'll have to double check on it. But anyway, it's been an hour. God bless you. Have a beautiful day today. Get some rest. Think about everything I've shared with you today. Please keep your logical head on. Okay? Keep your logical head on. The issues that I fight for are child welfare issues. It is a bipartisan issue. Personally, I think the Democrats have screwed it up more than the Republicans have because of ASFA and because of CAPTA. And I think our greatest hero is Grassley, who's a Republican, and he's done the most to kind of help us get new laws. But anyway, that's where we are, y'all. Fight, fight, fight. Be silent no more. You see my sign? Silent no more. This is the last thing. Silent no more. Okay, be silent no more. Decide what you're going to do to help protect our liberty, whatever that looks like to you. And when I say I need, you need to do something, I know we all have busy lives. I have a very busy life. I have a lot of obligations that I have to meet. But you've got to say, okay, I can spend 30 minutes a week. I can spend 45 minutes a week. I can spend 30 minutes twice a week just becoming an active citizen who cares what our future looks like. I'm doing this not for me, whatever God gives me on this. I've already survived cancer. Every day is just a plus for me. So God takes me out tomorrow, next day, 20 years from now. CAPTA is the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, Darcy, from 1974 with Mondale, which is the federal law that dumped a lot of money into the states to be able to start prosecuting child abuse. So that's one of our demons that we're trying to fight right now. Thank you for your questions. I like to answer questions. I do. I am a little bit of a hyper-focused person, so sometimes you'll see me jump all over the place. I'm sorry for that. But y'all are such a blessing. Thank you for following up. Please make a commitment that we are going to continue to work on child welfare reform, protect our families, build stronger families, and build our nation. I love you, and goodbye.